There is a war on Jewish history, and the world is playing along. As Arabs bulldoze ancient heritage sites in Judea and Samaria, Western governments aren't condemning the destruction. They're condemning Jews for building homes next to these very places. While the IDF stops terror plots under the cover of night, foreign powers stay silent on the real threats. Today, we'll dig into the efforts to erase Jewish history and how this all ties into what's happening on the ground. Stay with us here on Judaization. Welcome back to Judaization here on JNS TV. My name is Josh Haston, correspondent for JNS News, and we're going to talk about archaeological terrorism in just a minute. But unfortunately, 2 Israelis were murdered this past Friday in a terrorist attack in northern Israel. It was a combined car ramming and stabbing attack carried out by an Arab terrorist who lived in a village under the Palestinian Authority near the Jenin area that's in northern Samaria, the northern Shomron. He was in Israel proper, pre-1967 Israel, illegally. He was working for several days illegally here. The assailant, identified as Ahmad Abu Arom, 34 years old, from the town of Kambacha. Again, that's in northern Samaria. That was working here and went on this murderous rampage using his car as a weapon and then using a knife as a weapon. 68-year-old Shimshon Mordechai was murdered in that attack, along with 18-year-old Aviv Maor. Israel Defense Force Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir on Saturday underscored the gravity of the previous day's terrorist attack, ordering reinforcement of troops in the Central Command region. That's essentially is in Judea and Samaria. The terrorist's house has been sealed, from what I understand, and now the process goes forward with the IDF preparing to demolish the house. So that is a deterrent. The IDF and security forces coming in, and they will eventually, once the Supreme Court, I believe, approves, they will demolish a terrorist house. And this happens basically every single time there's an attack. With that being said, I would argue that the government of the State of Israel has to create a true deterrence in order that a would-be terrorist who wakes up in the morning realizes it's not worth it to murder Jews. And I understand that these individuals under the PA have been indoctrinated since birth that they should grow up and be shaheeds and try to murder Jews. And of course, they're rewarded through a pay-to-slay program. This individual who survived, he was shot, the terrorist was shot, he'll now be on the PA payroll. And this is an incentive for him. So the IDF and the government really has to create a deterrence where these individuals realize it's not worth it. Whether we're talking about expelling terrorists and their families outside the borders of Israel, including Judea and Samaria, I'm going to leave that up to the professionals, those in the halls of power, but it has to happen. And I've been saying this time and time again, I don't know, for 30 years now. When are we going to decide that a true, and again, this is not a knock on IDF soldiers at all, where we'll talk about this more later on in the show, who are defending us 24/7 and thwart more than 90% of these attacks. I'm not trying to knock them in any way, shape, or form, but our leaders have to come to some sort of decision once and for all in order to create this deterrence so we are not waking up on a Friday morning or any other morning for that matter with these horrible terrorist attacks. Now, I wanted to start the show on something different. Another version of terrorism here is the archaeological terrorism, which is taking place throughout Judea and Samaria last week. And for many weeks, I think now we've been talking about environmental terrorism, the air pollution caused by illegal burning of fires that the Arabs are carrying out under PA-controlled areas. But there's also this other aspect here, a phenomenon of archaeological terrorism, and the goal is to try to erase Jewish history by destroying ancient artifacts and these heritage sites. According to the Ynet news agency, there are 3,064 Jewish heritage sites throughout Judea and Samaria, over 3,000. 2,500 plus are in Area C, that's under full Israeli control. Out of all those sites, those 3,000, about half, a little bit more than half, 1,150 have been damaged over the last 30 years. These are ancient, historical Jewish heritage sites, 1,150 damaged. And what have we been doing about it? Ken, I'm blaming our government for not doing enough, but it looks like maybe now something will be done. The Civil Administration Staff Officer for Archaeology, his name is Benjamin Har Evan. He is carrying out changes, primarily transferring administrative and criminal enforcement powers to employees under his auspices. In the past, the enforcement capabilities were extremely limited, and there was only one antiquities looting inspector in all of Judea and Samaria. One guy was in charge of protecting 3,000 heritage sites. So now an entire department is being built by this individual under the civil administration with the goal of enforcement, investigations, intelligence, staffed by a group of people, including a lawyer who serves as a military prosecutor, so that indictments can be filed against the Arabs who are looting these ancient sites. So again, just like last week, we discussed how Israel is doing more to prevent environmental terrorism. According to this report, the government is finally doing more to prevent archaeological terrorism. Let's be clear, as I said from the beginning, the goal is to destroy, to wipe out Jewish history. That is the goal of our enemies, to wipe out any traces of Jews or Judaism in Judea and Samaria. I've seen it myself, by the way, on the Temple Mount, the attempts by the Waqf and those up on the Temple Mount, the Arabs up there, trying to erase the fact that there were two ancient Jewish temples on the Temple Mount, Judaism's holiest site. That is also taking place in Judea and Samaria. Hopefully, with this new policy and protocol, with this enforcement staff, really, of individuals, they will prevent this archaeological terrorism from taking place. Now, last week we talked about the approval of 19 new communities in Judea and Samaria. And as we alluded to, the international community, of course, going crazy, especially the Western nations in Europe, in the EU, and other countries going absolutely ballistic that Jews want to live, build, thrive in Judea, which is the most natural thing in the world. So Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar this week responded to the condemnation by those Western countries about Judea and Samaria, the program to build there, those 19 new communities, saying that foreign governments will not restrict the right of Jews to live in the land of Israel, anywhere in the land of Israel. And he's absolutely correct. He said that such a call is morally wrong and discriminatory against Jews. Absolutely. The foreign minister has it right here, 100%. Saying Jews can live in Paris, in New York, in London, in Rome, and any other city around the world is okay, but Jews cannot live in Judea, in the Benjamin area, in Samaria. It's unbelievable that we're actually talking about this, but these are the condemnations Israel is getting from Western governments, by the way, all over the world. So Gideon Sa'ar assuring that the decision to establish 11 new communities and formally legalize the other 8, which has been considered illegal, aims to address several security threats. That's one of the reasons we're building the communities. He also said that all the communities are in Area C under full Israeli control. There's no reason we should be able to build there, and situated on state land. So they're legal communities. They're under Israeli control. Those 19, which are either being built being built from the beginning or being officially legally recognized, they're good for our security. And more than that, I would add to that, because it's Judea, because this is the ancestral heartland of the state of Israel and the Jewish people. So, and then Sarah then went on to explain under international law. I'm not going to get into all the details here. The San Remo Conference of 1920, establishing the legal Jewish presence or the right of the Jewish people to establish its national home all over Israel, including Judea and Samaria. That, by the way, is the most recognized legal ruling permitting Jews to go back to Judea and Samaria, the San Remo conference there back in 1920, but that's been ignored for the last 100 years. So I congratulate the Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar for calling out those countries, by the way, Britain, Canada, and Germany, amongst those countries, condemning Jews building in Judea. Now, we talked about terrorism. Unfortunately, we opened the show talking about what happened, and I did say that 90% of those attacks were thwarted. Here's just one example. I'm on the list of the IDF, the press list, getting all the information, which they publish, I would say, numerous times on any given day. Here's just one example of just an overnight for those brave men and women of the IDF. This past Wednesday evening, soldiers operating throughout different areas in Judea and Samaria. In the Jayus area, soldiers apprehended 4 terrorists operating there in advanced phases of potentially carrying out a deadly terrorist attack. So soldiers on multi-fronts there throughout Judea and Samaria, apprehending suspects, confiscating weapons or whatnot. And it's just a brief report, but it just gives you a glimpse, a snapshot really, of number one, what our enemies are trying to do, working 24/7 to try to launch more attacks. They'd be happy if another October 7th attack happened, whether it's Hamas or the Palestinian Authority, every single day trying to murder Jews, trying to murder Israelis. And by the way, we should stop pretending this is only what happens in Gaza. Let's remember, this is Judea and Samaria. This isn't even Gaza, and it's not even Hamas, but terrorists on a nightly basis. Just one snapshot of one night where suspects were arrested, arms were confiscated, and potentially a major attack forwarded by the IDF. I suggest anyone out there on Telegram try to get the updates from the IDF and really understand what we are dealing with here on a daily or a nightly basis throughout Judea and Samaria, really protecting not only our areas, but the entire state of Israel. The Palestinian Authority, what are they busy with these days? They're not busy improving the lives of Arabs living under their jurisdiction. They're not busy making peace, that's for sure. What they are busy with, and especially and including Palestinian Authority head Mahmoud Abbas, they're busy with trying to have murderous terrorists be pardoned, namely Marwan Barghouti, the master terrorist guilty of at least, I mean, on the books, murdering 5 Israelis. So Mahmoud Abbas this past week meeting with the spouse of Marwan Barghouti as part of an official campaign for his release. Again, as I said, Barghouti sentenced to 5 life terms for the murder of 5 Israelis and for other crimes. So there you have Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the PA, meeting with Fadwa Barghouti at the presidential headquarters in Ramallah, with the former issuing a statement that Barghouti's release has always been at the top of President Abbas's agenda and that of the Fatah movement, according to the PA news agency Wafa. In August, PA deputy leader Hussein al-Sheikh said that every effort was being made to secure Barghouti's release. The statement came during a visit with other officials of the PA to the home of Barghouti's family, with that individual al-Sheikh adding that the former head of the Tanzim terrorist group, Barghouti he's talking about, represents a symbol of the Palestinian struggle. Those are his words, not mine. Barghouti is a symbol of the Palestinian struggle. So the PA leaders are absolutely clear as to what their priorities are, as to who the heroes are in their society. Terrorists. They're the heads, the symbols of the PA struggle, of course, against Israel, and that all detainees should be released. That's what the PA wants. That's what they're busy with right now, trying to get Barghouti released from his life sentence. Israeli government officials say, and by the way, he, in theory, was going to be part of the last prisoner release or one of the prisoner releases from Gaza. Israel said no. Israeli officials saying that releasing Barghouti is a major, major risk. It could reignite large-scale violence, terrorism. Israel Prison Services officials describing him as a ticking time bomb whose freedom could trigger a third intifada. That's all we need right now, right? Is a complete, as bad as things might be with the daily terrorism in Judea and Samaria, the rock throwing, the fire bombs, and as we had the other day, a terrorist coming from Judea and Samaria and murdering 2 Israelis in northern Israel. Barghouti's release would be a ticking time bomb against those in the know and could trigger another, basically a war of terror against the state of Israel and the Jewish people. Marwan Barghouti belongs behind bars, even if he has these 200 useful idiots from Hollywood, I believe it was about a month ago, signing some sort of petition as if he was like a freedom fighter or a good guy fighting for, humanity and whatnot. He's a terrorist murderer, and it's a disgrace that anyone would try to have him released. And bottom line is we have to realize who the Palestinian Authority is, what their values are, what their focus is on. It is on trying to free terrorists who murder Jews. Now, I don't think I've really done this before, calling out a Jewish community for their lapse in judgment, in my opinion. Unfortunately, the community of Givat Ze'ev, that is just north of Jerusalem, they need to wake up. And I'll explain why. Border police are pressing the town officials in Givat Ze'ev to tighten its security provisions regarding PA workers. This is 2 weeks after police nabbed 7 guards suspected of helping smuggle laborers into the town. 7 guards from, I believe it was a private company. They were being bribed to smuggle these laborers into Givat Ze'ev, and they went ahead and did it, and they were caught by police. So it's usually, what I've talked about in the past is local residents, I'm thinking about Bet El. We spoke about that several weeks ago. Bet El begging law enforcement officials, police, army to do more for their security. In this case, the police officers, they're the ones, the border police, they're the ones who are begging Giv'at Ze'ev, you need to get a grip on your security. So it sounds like some sort of free-for-all where you have security guards who are taking bribes to let Arab laborers in, just a porous situation there where these workers are coming in and who knows who else is coming in. God forbid, Giv'at Ze'ev needs to wake up. Now, the local council did respond to this request by the border police to enhance their security, saying it does not compromise on security. But this report is really damning. Okay. Again, as I said, normally it's the residents who ask for more. And in this case, the police are telling them, you must get a grip on your security. It's absolutely frightening. Giv'at Ze'ev needs to wake up and get their act together before, God forbid, I don't even want to say what. Now, many of you out there are in the midst of the holiday season, whether you're in the US or anywhere around the world celebrating Christmas and New Year coming up. But have you noticed there is a concerted attempt by Muslims and Arabs, especially under the PA and in other places in Israel, to try to turn Christians against Jews? So let's check out a story here in a London progressive publication called The New Arab. The headline reads, Israeli persecution casts shadow over Christmas in Haifa and what they say is the West Bank. According to this article, Christian celebrations across Palestine, wherever that is, I don't know, and inside Israel were marked by violence, repression, and the enduring trauma of Israel's war on Gaza, as Palestinian Christian communities attempted to observe the holiday under siege, surveillance, and occupation. So this paints a grim picture, does this New Arab media site, if that's what they are. Now, I didn't hear anything about violence on Christmas. Where are they getting their information? I'm not exactly sure. Or that Israel, if you believe this report, it sounds like Israel carried out some sort of pogrom against Christians, like an organized pogrom against Christians. And this is really called fake news. In Haifa, scenes of celebration in the Palestinian Christian neighborhood of Wadi al-Nisnas turned chaotic after Israeli police stormed the area, arresting and beating residents. Israel beat Christian residents on Christmas. That's what they're reporting, according to footage and eyewitness accounts shared online. Families preparing for Christmas were met instead with force and arrests in an incident that reflects the routine targeting of Palestinian communities even during the religious holidays. I mean, you're talking about absolute lies and propaganda being spewed by this progressive newspaper here out of London. Here's the truth of what happened. I did a little research here. According to the Israeli police, they put out a statement here. Contrary to false claims circulating online, including in this fake news outlet, police did not raid a Christian Christmas event in Haifa. Quite the opposite. And this is what really happened. While keeping this event safe, officers stopped 3 individuals acting disorderly, allowing the festive celebration to conclude without any further disruption. And then the police go on to say, Merry Christmas to our Christian officers, communities, and friends around the world. In other words, there are Christian policemen serving as part of the Israeli police department. So what happened in Haifa? You had 3 individuals, maybe they were drinking, whatever it was, they became disorderly and the police were called and arrested, took these 3 individuals away from the scene so that the official Christian celebrations for Christmas could be held in an orderly and respectful manner. So this publication is flat out lying, claiming there was some sort of pogrom against Christians in Haifa over the Christmas holiday. Here, this is the article continues. The crackdown in Haifa came, maybe I shouldn't even read this, but I'm going to, as Christians across Palestine, now they're not talking about Haifa, they're talking about Judea and Samaria, what they call Narnia or Palestine, whatever it is, marked Christmas amid the devastation left by Israel's onslaught on Gaza and the tightening of military control in the occupied West Bank. Of course, these are all their terms. So the onslaught in Gaza, okay? So what they're essentially saying is Israel should sit quietly after the October 7th massacre. We should not have gone into Gaza to take out Hamas. That's basically what they're saying. And of course, this report doesn't even mention October the 7th. God forbid they should actually do that. How does Hamas or the PA actually treat Christians? Well, Bethlehem is unfortunately, the perfect example here, which today is only about 10% Christian when it used to be over 80% Christian. Maybe it has something to do with Muslim persecution. Not according to the progressives at this newspaper. It's always the Jews to blame. And it's this attempt to try to frame Israel as being anti-Christian. That's what they're trying to do. Israel, the only country in the region where a Christian population is somehow growing, we are the bad guys. And the PA and Hamas, they are essentially the freedom fighters and the good guys, according to this report. Folks, don't be fooled by the propaganda. Don't let them try to drive a wedge between pro-Israel Christians or Christians in general and Jews, because that is their goal. And that's going to do it, folks. That's all the time we have for this week's Judaization here on JNS TV. My name is Josh Haston, correspondent for JNS News. Make sure you go to JNS TV for all the amazing program that JNS offers. Give us a super thanks. Donate to JNS today. Make sure you go to jns.org for all the latest breaking news from Israel, the Middle East, and the entire Jewish world. I want to thank everybody behind the scenes here. Aaron Wogelanter, Esther Eden, producer Zach Sickerman, Ryan Lifshitz, and station manager Yuri Svertsky. For those who are celebrating, wishing you all a happy New Year, happy January 1st, 2026. And we'll see you next week on Judaization here on JNS TV.